marauder.
Marauder.
You know what that word means?
Murder?
No, marauder.
No, what's that mean?
It's when a pirate goes on a ship and ransacks it and pillages it for the booty.
Okay, that's a marauder?
That's a marauder.
So you are...
Deep state marauder.
Okay. What's the deep state?
Well, we can talk about it.
Let's go. You're being recorded, man.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Are we going now?
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah. So, Yvonne, you are a...
Oh, we got the lights. Everything's back on.
Yeah, now
we're rocking and rolling. We had a little bit of offensive coordination against these lawless actors within the executive branch and doing that necessary body check. So I kind of coined the phrase of deep state marauder, and I'm sticking with it. So what does that mean? That means literally taking all my...
On the website?
No, I don't have that website. I probably should. My website's just simple. My last name, Raiklin.com. Yeah, shameless plug, RAIKLIN.com. But what I do is I speak about different things that particularly go to the core of who is the enemy currently of our constitutional order and foreign and domestic, and then what we need to do in order to be able to contain them at a minimum and potentially essentially extricate them from being able to destroy our patriotic constitutional order.
Okay, so fine.
I know that's kind of complicated, but
not that complicated.
We can do a 40-hour deep dive.
Well, let's go with 10 minutes.
Okay, we'll shorten it.
We're going 40 hours, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. 40 hours? Yeah. Well, let's hit some punch points, Roger, right? We get to the
you want to do the 2-hour kind of just superficial summary?
If you like.
No, we'll just do
the
Cliff's Notes.
So we're at the Trump Doral.
We are. In Miami.
In Florida. Dude, this is where this podcast started.
No joke.
Miami, Florida.
Established 2016. We're talking 7 years now. That's when things really kicked off in terms of Mike Pence's role in facilitating the unlawful spying on Trump in July of 2016. As soon as he was nominated as vice president, that's when he sprung into action with his boys Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and the rest of the cabal, Ryan Priebus, Sean Spicer, to go ahead and create the mechanism and frame that they needed in order to constrain Trump so that they could pull off a 25th Amendment at any point in time that they needed to if Trump went outside the bounds. Mike Pence was the handler of Trump 1.0. Is that what you were asking?
Well, let me come at it from this angle. Okay? from layman's terms, all right? Yeah. I don't have the Green Beret experience or some of this inside intel that you dug up or been privy to.
Again, this is just my theory. These are my thoughts. This is my opinion, backed up by quite a bit of evidence.
Okay. So in 2015,
bring it.
I'm over at this ballroom across the way there.
Got
a pretty liberal girlfriend at the time. But what caught my attention was that as a pre-candidate for U.S. President Donald Trump spoke over there and said, I listened to him twice, spring of 2015 again, spring of 2015. He says, if I run for president, I'll run as an independent, self-financed. Now, Yvonne, I'm a guy that back in the 90s voted for someone named Ross Perot.
Okay.
Because he was independent, self-financed.
Yeah.
So what Trump said to me spoke volumes.
Right.
And now I've got this Harvard grad that's my girlfriend, very liberal, holding up Trump's son. Said, hey, he's going to save America. There's something going on here. I like its music to my ears, but I'm turning. A few months later, he joins the GOP. And I just thought to myself, Yvonne, what deal did he make with the GOP? Because I heard him twice say if he ran for president, which at that point he declared, he'd run as independent, self-financed. So there goes the independent angle. Now introduce the GOP. Now you're telling me about Mike Pence colluding with these other folks to keep Donald within boundaries. What deal did Trump make? Did he make a deal? Why did he choose Pence as his running mate?
I'm glad you asked these questions. I'm glad you introduced and started off with your background going back to 2015.
Yvonne.
Ooh, Yvonne. Okay.
Is it Yvonne?
I'll take it.
Yvonne. Pardon me.
I'll take it.
Ivan. I think I'll slit your throat, but I'll take it. And I got a helicopter pilot on my side. Roger. Ivan. Now, you got your team pretty good with this question. Right. Keep going. So I'm living in Miami, like I said. I'm living over in South Beach. And the following year, people are losing their minds because a pesticide is being introduced via aerial spraying to combat something called the Zika virus, which produces a child with a small head. It's called microcephaly, right? This is supposedly get introduced to the U.S. via Brazil.
You're going into it. Let's start off with the first component. Because you're going into
But Trump has been elected. Okay.
Okay, back up. I'm going to address the first part. Nice and easy.
All right.
You're getting excited. Number one, when you said independent, right?
Yeah. When he said independent.
Yeah, he said independent, right? Well, guess what happened? He runs and announces that he's going to run for office. He realizes that, guess what? In order to be able to secure the nomination or to be the president of the United States, you kind of have to work through the political system. Otherwise, really, you can't do that unless you basically have more resources and assets than both parties combined. Because both parties will make sure that they destroy you. Okay? This is what we saw over the last 7 years. Fast forward into 2016 campaign season. There's 20 candidates on the Republican ticket, right? Donald Trump, before the primary is over, is securing approximately 30 to 35% of the electorate, depending on the state, right? Going into July of 2016, which was plenty because there was a lot of candidates, right? So he ends up securing the nomination. Up to that point, you think the GOP trusts Donald Trump? If he's saying stuff like, oh, independent. Or before that, he was donating a lot of money, right, to Democrats as well.
Right.
You think they trust him? Oh, hell no. So then what do they want? Are they going to support somebody that's totally independent? Or are they going to try to create the frame so that they can negotiate a deal that's best for them? And what does that deal look like? I suspect the deal went something like this. Do you think the GOP is going to want to have some leverage over Trump through a vice president?
Right.
Through
Let's
a vice
make a
president?
deal.
Let's make a deal. Hey, Donald, you only secured 35% of the vote. There's no way you're going to secure the general election if you don't get our help.
Right. You're not going to take on the Hillary Clinton machine.
Exactly. Actually, we're going to do you one better. If you don't take our vice presidential pick, guess what? We're going to make sure that you lose. We're going to support Hillary. What do you say, Trump? You want to help us out? We present to you Mikey Pence. Is that good? We'll help you if you take Mike Pence. Are you good with that, Donald? Are you?
Yeah.
You got no option. So now that you've accepted Mikey Pence, hey DOJ and FBI, do your things. Click 2 weeks later. I'm speculating on that part. I'm speculating that the call was made to launch Crossfire Hurricane by both parties. It wasn't just the Hillary camp. Because why do I think that? This is why. Who's the director of the FBI at this time? James Comey, right? Who appointed him?
Pence. Trump. Obama.
Before that.
It's a Bush.
So, what about Rod Rosenstein?
It's not a Bush appointed?
No. U.S. Attorney. So when you look at the players at the senior level that were later involved in the Mueller investigation, the 25th Amendment attempts on Trump, those were all Bushies. Yep. All of them.
Daddy or Junior, it doesn't really matter.
Within the DOJ and the FBI. And then who was later teed up to be the FBI director after Comey was fired? Well, first it was going to be Robert Mueller, who was the Bushy FBI director from 2001 to 2013. And then, when Trump refused to take on Mueller as the FBI director, who did they tee up for him? Who did Mike Pence and Chris Christie tee up to be the FBI director? Christopher Wray. As Rod Rosenstein appoints Robert Mueller to be the special counsel to keep Trump in the box. So first they spy on him to create leverage so that they can say Russia, allow the Russia scheme to occur by the left.
Right.
And then what happens to Paul Ryan? After Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and Reince Priebus. You know these people, right? Reince Priebus the head of Reince Priebus head of the RNC. Right. Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, Republican. Mitch McConnell, the majority leader in the Senate. When all three of those are like, hey, you're going to take Mikey Pence, And then next thing that they do is essentially at a minimum allow, more than likely no, and probably are providing top cover for the spying on the Trump campaign, because the senior people that are providing the top cover for the spying on the Trump campaign to occur, those are all right. They have an R by their name, or were appointed by an R by their name. And when you go through their list of FEC donations, political donations that they made, they've made them to Bush or like a Lindsey Graham, right? So when you go through all that, link analysis, financial transactions, all this is public information. It begs the question from a critical thinker like myself. How is it possible that an institution such as the DOJ and the FBI is taking such a bold step to spy on a campaign? Both parties have to be in on it. But why is no one talking about the Republican side of things? Well, because Paul Ryan later takes a board seat on Fox News, Faux News, to be that top cover, to provide top cover for Pence, never say a single negative word about him, and then allow that investigation to take place so that they continue to box in Trump so that they can control him. Because at any point in time, they can just say, hey, Donald, we're going to 25th Amendment you, meaning remove you. And the way we can do that is because we're not going to confirm anybody that's loyal to you. They're going to be acting secretaries. So remember a lot of the acting secretaries during his first term? And those that we do confirm, the Senate via Mitch McConnell, and especially judges in the judiciary via the chair of the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, Lindsey Graham, and anybody intel related that we need to provide top cover for, because we have the chairman of the Senate Intel Committee, Richard Burr. Those are the people that are providing the necessary legislative top cover for the Jim Comeys and the Robert Muellers and the Christopher Wrays to continue to investigate Trump, to then later raid his home. Chris Wray is still the director. Who's providing them top cover? The Bush, Cheney, Pence cabal. 10 minutes are up.
Well, we're going to extend that.
Oh, now we're going to extend that.
We're going to extend that. That would be great.
He threw a Trump card down.
Okay. Did I intrigue you?
What, was Ryan in there? Where did Ryan come from?
Paul Ryan, Wisconsin?
Yeah, he was a Mitt Romney running mate.
Hey, you want to go into the Paul Ryan cabal?
We can go. We can go into the Paul Ryan cabal if you like. However, I think it threads nicely into the Rupert Murdoch cabal.
Nice. Very nice. This is where I'm going to take over. Give me a few minutes as I flesh this out.
You've got 10.
Okay. Thank
Until I
you.
extend again.
Of the governmental corruption that has currently have been taking place over the last 7 years and going to go into the 2024 presidential cycle starts in Racine, Wisconsin.
Paul Ryan.
Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, 1st Congressional District of Wisconsin. His chief of staff was college roommates with none other than the longest standing Speaker of the House in Wisconsin politics, a guy by the name of Robin Voss, who is dual-hatted as the president of the National Council of State Legislatures and college roommates with the former RNC chair, Reince Priebus, who is indicating he wants to become the RNC chair again after Ronna Romney going into 2024. The RNC convention is going to be in Milwaukee next year. So let's back up a little bit. See that little click? Whitewater Mafia, we call them, because they went to college together.
Who's we? You said we call them. Who's we?
We?
You and your team?
We call them, America calls them. Wisconsinites that know the corruption call them the Whitewater Mafia. Okay? Good pickup. Good critical listening skills. I like that. So, with that said, how does that extend out to Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch son? Well, when you're on the board of, let's put it this way.
And if you can wrap it to Carlson for the listeners, I think they.
I got it all for you. I got it all. All right, let me just do it this way, shorthand. Paul Ryan, his sergeant at arms, at the time he was Speaker of the House, was a guy by the name of Paul Irving, who remained as the sergeant at arms for Nancy Pelosi during the Fedsurrection. That sergeant at arms was also the sergeant at arms for the speaker before Paul Ryan, a guy by the name of John Boehner. And wasn't John Boehner and Paul Ryan campaigning in the spring of 2022 for a gentle lady from the state of Wyoming by the name of Liz Cheney? You see how this works? Do I need to extrapolate more? I will. So,
It's almost like you got to draw it on the wall.
I have a 4-hour on my locals deep dive on a whiteboard linking all these players at the highest levels. I crush the commies both left and right. But because no one's really going after those on the right, I'm left with the scraps. That's why I'm the deep state marauder. So we go into this whole link analysis, and I'm getting to Tucker. Stand by.
You can start with one of the Murdochs if you like.
Yeah. So Tucker Carlson has leverage because he's the highest ranking show in all of media. That's why he's been able to survive as long as he has been. But once he started bringing on Ivan Raiklin onto his show that exposed some things, once he starts bringing on and getting access to the 41,000 hours of tape of January 6th, that helped him prove what I've already gotten to, and some of us have gotten to, where it was the facilitated unlawful entry into the Capitol to ensure a coup would occur without America knowing, so that the frame would be an insurrection as opposed to a Nancy-rection. And faux news is in on it because they all want to remove Trump because he's that independent that you said that they can't control. They have to extricate him and they have no leverage over him. Thus, they have to do attempted coup after attempted coup after attempted coup. And the first person that would be able to identify that they spied on him back in 2016 would have been a guy by the name of General Michael Flynn. And that is why Mike Pence had to be the one to fire General Flynn. I'm going to say this. One of Mike Pence's attorneys told me, and I'm going to say this for the first time on this show, sitting at Trump Hotel in Washington, D.C.
Continental Avenue. Constitutional Avenue.
Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
That's all right. You're close. Tells me the most vocal and adamant that he had ever seen Mike Pence was when speaking with Trump when he was advocating the removal of General Flynn. Match that with Hussein Obama is trying to tell in his first
Very sincere. Names.
Yeah, Hussein Obama meets with now incoming, actually President Trump, the handover, right? The meeting. He tells him what? The two people that you need to be concerned with the most is Rocket Man and General Flynn. Did the Democrats trust Flynn for speaking truth to power? Obama appointed him twice, but yet he spoke truth to power about the whole JV team ISIS and the Iran nuclear deal and the Ukraine Biden syndicate. Was I on the Ukraine crisis team in the Pentagon at that time when that was going down? Maybe. I may have. So you have the Democrat leadership Hussein doesn't trust the senior advisor to President Trump, General Flynn, on national security that will expose the left and potentially expose the right's involvement in the spying on Trump. You see how both parties are now potentially working together to remove their biggest existential threats? Flynn, number one. Trump, once he identifies what's going on, because he's new to D.C., right? He's new to the swamp. He needs to rely on people around him. So you remove Flynn, who do you have to rely on now? As Trump?
Kimberly Guilfoyle?
Mike Pence. Who else do you have to rely on now that Mike Pence also fired Sebastian Gorka, fired Steve Bannon? Now you get to rely on the Ryan Sprievuses of the world. Huh? You see how this works? Raw power grab. So that the deep state could maintain their uniparty handler over the independent that ran as an R to keep them in the box. Now, how do you cover this up in the court of public opinion? Here's where we enter faux news. You got Paul Ryan providing top cover.
Australian, aren't they?
Yeah, you got him providing top cover. Anything negative that would potentially be exposed about Pence and the uniparty right, faux news will never talk about it. Except you got a guy by the name of Tucker Carlson that dabbles into that ecosystem and brings on folks like General Flynn to interview him and does a long hour, 1 hour deep dive. He also brings on folks like Justice Gableman that exposes that the election in Wisconsin should be decertified by the legislature and other topics of very high interest to patriots. However, there's a contract. Anything that goes on Tucker tonight has to go through the censors that Paul Ryan and Murdoch allow. But on the day program of Fox Nation, Tucker can say whatever he wants. So the stuff that is really juicy doesn't ever get seen by his 3.5 million viewers on the primetime show because it's censored out. And the way they manage their number one talent is to have this dichotomous relationship until he starts to go into the root of the coup, January 6th. Kevin McCarthy gives him access. He identifies some things finally in the massive level that we all know as patriots occurred on January 6th. The facilitated the entrapment, right? And the coup. And so as he exposes it for the lemmings of society that watches his show, that don't know what's going on in these networks, it wakes America up. What happens the next day after he airs the show? Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer and the left in unison start to sing the same song. Mr. Murdoch, you need to stop Tucker Carlson. And as a Senate Majority Leader and as a Senate Minority Leader, we have a little bit of leverage, Mr. Murdoch. And you hate anything, any contact that would help out your favorite enemy, antagonist, Orange Man Bad. So then, of course, Murdoch's going to comply. But not only you stop there, if the investigation into J6 continues at scale like Tucker can do, and only he can do, then what happens? Paul Ryan's relationship with the J6 cover-up committee starts to get exposed. I only have an audience of a few thousand, but if Tucker exposes it, now society sees, oh wow, they see these relationships. So Tucker has to be silenced. Tucker, you're not going to talk about J6 anymore. What happens next? Who does he invite to interview on his show? The former Capitol Police Chief, Stephen Son, to flesh and shed some light on what happened on January 6th. When was that supposed to air? The day after he was fired. Also, remember the settlement that Faux News did with deviant voting systems?
Of course.
$100 million?
Almost $800 million. Ivan Raiklin calls that a bribe, also known as an investment into the very company that is going to make sure that Faux News is going to work with deviant voting systems to be able to implement the electoral outcome that Faux News wants, meaning Paul Ryan and Murdoch want. Is that going to be Mike Pence? I suspect so. And I think the backup is Ron DeSantis potentially. Well, how does that work? This is how it works. Faux News is going to say whatever the outcome that deviant voting systems adjudicates in these contested states is legitimate, just like they did in Arizona in 2020. When people sue deviant voting systems for their adjudicative process, they're not going to be able to sue them. Why? Because Faux News' Paul Ryan is going to call over his buddy Robin Voss, the Speaker of the House of Wisconsin, who gets to appoint the Wisconsin Election Commission people to be able to make sure that the election is conducted exactly how they want the outcome to be so that it's commensurate with the deviant voting system's results. Faux News reports on that. So Wisconsin is now in the bag of whoever the Republican Uniparty wants in the primary for those delegates, and then subsequently in the general election. And then nationally, Paul Ryan's homie, Robin Voss, who is also the president of the National Conference of State Legislatures, is going to be advocating that the Republican legislative majorities throughout the country pass laws that say, hey, deviant voting systems, whatever they adjudicate is the result, and there is no ability to question it. So now you just legalized the electoral heist with about 3 people. Murdoch, Paul Ryan, Robin Voss, and they install Mike Pence. Or DeSantis. How am I wrong?
RFK Jr. Is he planted, or is he another raw patriot? Just on the left.
The way we find this out is for Tucker Carlson, if you're watching, to host a concurrent Twitter Space, video live, and a Rumble Truth Social live, where he invites President Trump for a town hall, Vivek Ramaswamy, and RFK Jr. And in that, 50 to 100 million people are going to watch. It destroys the ratings and continues to bankrupt faux news, expose them as part of that debate. Next, RFK Jr. is going to be able to use that platform to educate the country and President Trump that he was lied to by the very person that was the boss of Fauci that curated the information that went to President Trump. And those names are Mike Pence, who headed up what they call the COVID task force.
That's right.
And the shadow governor of the COVID task force, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And the whole country's going to learn it as Tucker hosts this. And guess what happens to faux news? Guess what happens to mainstream media? Guess what happens to, let me call it this way, I think at that point the jig is up. And then the country's going to be educated to ensure that the state legislatures pass laws that remove the machines, in person, 1 day, voter ID, and the electoral outcome is going to be very favorable to folks like you and me. That's how you fix it.
Last question, Yvonne, as we wind down, and I appreciate your time. He doesn't mind, Yvonne.
I don't mind it. I've been
Ivan the Great, even Ivan the Great.
I've been called worse, and I like that too, because that means I'm getting to the haters and the trolls. Bring it. Last question. And you need to be more intense than you are, okay? When you ask. Pardon? You're not intense enough.
I'm not intense enough.
Escalate your tenacity and intensity. Go. And I'm going to try to mirror image it.
And I want you to hit. I want you to. I want you to hit you. No, please.
Okay.
No, you don't need to do
He's a
that.
prize fighter.
Yeah, they got big gloves on.
I know.
Oh, he's showing you a card.
Yeah.
Trump called him prize
You're
fighter.
America's prize fighter?
Trump
I'm
called him.
America's offensive coordinator. Me and you together? We'll wait for it after this question.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to extend the recording and extending the recording. I want you to hit the head on the nail here. And you can do that. You're going to do that right now. For listeners that you have just completely captivated. I mean, let me tell you, I've been doing this for close to 7 years.
Yep.
No one's laid out that trail that makes things sensical as to
Now do all the decisions make sense that Pence has made, that faux news has made?
So, because there's a lot of folks that listen to the stuff I do that are Fox people, and I've told them that Fox is not to be trusted. But wait a second.
No, they're the enemy.
Full stop. Bring things full circle. Bring things full circle, Ivy. Tell listeners what exactly is the enemy of the United States that has invaded. Brigadier General Robert Spalding, if you're familiar with the name, U.S. Air Force, said on this program, Ian, this country has been invaded by a stealth enemy. Now, his angle was China. My angle,
I'm going to link it back to China.
My angle is a machine that's more sophisticated than China. But this is an operating live, well-oiled war machine.
Yeah, you're teeing up some perfect questions. And I would call myself a subject matter expert on some of these. But I'll let the viewers and listeners decide.
Should I wrap up with a question that you can take?
This is a question, this is a softball.
How deep is the state?
Okay, I'm the deep state marauder. I'm identifying each deep state actor. Like, most people are like, oh, there's a deep state. Or they can say, hey, it's the FBI or the DOJ or the DHS, right? Organization, or maybe like different subsections. I go into each individual actor, okay? And I lay it out on my Substack. Individual, all branches of government. The judicial ecosystem, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, even down at the state level. We talk about Wisconsin. We can go on a deep dive in New Hampshire, Arizona, etc. I'm not going to do that right now. You want the deep analysis of all of this deep statery, if you will. I have a 4 hours whiteboard on my locals that you can go to and just go ahead and go through that. That's the 4 hour superficial layer. You want the master class? We're talking 40 hours. You're going to have to hire me for that, okay? That's how deep I go with this, okay? And it's updated every day because I'm constantly communicating with whistleblowers. I'm up in Congress every day. I'm getting insider information that it's not like it's classified or anything. It's just that I know who to ask and what to ask to then be able to get it that no one else is asking. Now, to link it back to China. And I did a 1 hour testimony before the Arizona State Legislature in February that lays this out. What's going on right now is America is being captured by now, and I hate to say this, we've been overtaken as the #1 superpower in the world by the Chinese Communist Party. The way that they've been able to do it is that they've taken the Yuri Bezmenov ideological subversion KGB model that was attempted to be implemented in the 60s in the United States, where you go into the universities, you go into the power structures of America, media, etc., to be able to basically subvert what is right and take it to be wrong, right? And flip the whole script in order to weaken society so that in that time the Soviet Union could rise at the expense of American global hegemony. Those individuals, this is where I assess it. I assess that those same individuals that tried to do that for the Soviet Union have now gone and worked with China to advise them on how they can do it better than what the Soviets did, because China has more economic power now. They have more information reach through quantum, AI, big data, 5G capability that they've been able to amass globally. All those capabilities through the diplomatic, information, military, economic landscape, and I go into details on the testimony that I did. They take that, apply the ideological subversion model, and do it through surrogates of all the key institutions, of the power institutions in the United States to benefit China, meanwhile benefiting those key actors in the United States so that they're on board with it, with this purpose of destroying our country from within. How does that look like? CCP goes ahead and captures big tech, big media, big pharma, big sports leagues, and they do it through both parties that are compliant, that are tethered to these big corporations. Big media consists of O News, all the way to include Commie News Network, right? MSDNC, Washington Compost, New York Slime, Raw Sewage, Reuters, the British outfit, right? And that's how it should be pronounced. Reuters, who's the official fact checker. Reuters. Who's the official fact checker for Twitter 1.0. And the CEO of Reuters is on the board of Pfizer. You see how these relationships fit in? I'll say this. So the whole deep state, how deep does it go? This is a global play. Obviously some other names are out there that use the institutions here in the United States that capture the current guy in the White House. That's why the Biden laptop, it does matter. It's not just like a little punchline. It showcases the deep-rooted corruption where China captures American political institutions, and guess what happens? 10% goes to the big guy and his family in a joint bank account with his son. It's proven. And then the same thing happens with Ukraine. Why is Kevin McCarthy not going after and impeaching Biden? Well, guess what? Some of the money that his PAC received from FTX goes back to the Ukraine money that Kevin McCarthy voted to send over to Ukraine. See how that works? So they're all in on it. And the thing is, the way that they can control it and not be exposed is to ensure that those that are on the right and the left, is phone news talking about any of this? No. Talker was kind of getting into it, right? They had to remove it. Is the left talking about it? No, because I suspect they agreed that the deep state top cover handler was going to go from Biden, who's the best person to be able that they have leverage over to be able to provide top cover in the next term for the Uniparty, for the Chris Rays of the world, for all the FBI that did all the lawless activity over the last 7 years. It's Mike Pence. It has to be. Now I get it. People are saying, Ron DeSantis is going to run. I still don't think that they're gonna. I'm guessing it can easily be. Yeah, I could be wrong. I get it. I think what's at play, and I just say this as an alternative analysis. I think what's at play is everyone's getting behind Ron DeSantis as a ruse, so that all those same individuals can then immediately pivot. As soon as Mike Pence, Bush, and Cheney give the go-ahead, along with the Husseins of the world, to go ahead and go after Trump with a federal indictment, leveraging their DOJ, as soon as that happens, you're going to start to see Pence announce his presidential run. And they're going to tell Ron DeSantis to stay as governor. And that infrastructure just falls onto Mike Pence. And the public perception story is going to be, well, I was close with Donald Trump, his broad chest and shoulders, but he's federally indicted. I had nothing to do with it, right? And so I have to step in to continue the Trump movement since I was his vice president. I think that's going to be the frame, and phone news is just going to carry the water to make sure that the lemmings that are still listening and watching phone news buy into it. And so that they then can legitimize in the court of public opinion the zero charisma and the zero approval ratings of Pence. Because let's face it, if you remove Trump and DeSantis out of the equation for a Republican nomination in the 2024, who by default is the front runner at this point? Who is it?
Mike Pence.
And I laid this out in a Substack article, and I get it. I could be wrong. A lot of people say no, DeSantis is running, and I get that. And that might be the backup to Pence. In order to have somebody to manage the external effort to investigate and prosecute everyone that was a seditious co-conspirator in the coup of January 6th and everything leading up to it, starting with when Pence and the cabal authorized the DOJ to spy on Trump.
The first flag.
That was the last question.
Only 39 and a half more hours.
All right, look, we're gonna have Ivan. We're gonna have Ivan give his information again. You obviously need to follow what he's on to. I got to throw one last thing at him. That's what's anticipated anyway. I like to dig, right? And I like to follow roots. I want to know where the tree came from, why it's flourishing in that soil.
Let's go back 50 years. I'm going to try to do it in 5 minutes.
Let me go here with you and see what you get. Okay, so yesterday,
I can take you back 50 years.
Okay.
It all starts with the junior senator from Delaware.
The
50 years ago.
first flag in the United States.
Oh, we're going even earlier. Okay.
The first flag of the United States.
Bringing Betsy into this.
Okay, right. That's what most people say. Betsy Ross. However, John Paul Jones flies on the USS Alfred, the flag that was adopted by Washington and Franklin at the Flag Committee, Act of Congress in Boston, Cambridge. That's known as a U.S. Grand Union flag that doesn't have any stars on it. That flag, Ivan, if you look at it, and anyone listening can look at it in a public search engine, has the Union Jack in the canton of the flag. So prior to 13 stars was the flag that represents the city of London on Washington and Franklin's flag that John Paul Jones flew. Now, this is what I'm going to tie it on to you. You see where you run with it. So everybody likes DeSantis. He's this and that. He's charismatic. He's the second coming of Trump. No, he's not second coming of Trump. I mean, but somebody says, hey, he's funded by George Soros, or he speaks well of George Soros, and Ivan, that's it. And Ivan, that's the first flag in the U.S. And, did you know that, Roger? No. And he is a knight of Malta. So if I look at World War II, I'm saying World War I, World War II, the United States shouldn't have been idle in those wars. The reason they're in the wars is because of the global economy. The Chinese, under Mao Zedong at that time in 1945, adapt the centralized bank.
You can't ask that question. You know why?
Right.
Because now we're going beyond the 40 hours. We're going to go into territory that's going to go into literally about 160-hour deep dive. And I don't want you to tempt me. I'm going to pause you. I don't want you to tempt me. You're going into very deep infrastructural issues in the financial system.
That's right.
That have created, I don't disagree. Based on the question, you've done the deep dive, you've done the rabbit hole. Everything is related to money. So when you hear people say follow the science, guess what, folks? This is how it's spelled. You got something to write on? I do, since you don't. Stand by. Follow the science in such manner as, and this is for the video audience. We got a video audience?
We have a video audience.
Okay. This is what it looks like. Science is spelled like this.
Triple it. That's the gateway to the Middle East. Those two bars.
Follow the science, and it's spelled with the dollar sign, a cent sign, the yen sign, the euro sign, the cents, and the euro. What does that mean to you?
Spells Switzerland.
It's spelled follow the money. Science. I need more intense look, because right now you're looking like a little weak one.
Federal Reserve Institutes CCP
CCP 19? Well, hold up. CCP 19. Was it all about following the science as it's normally spelled? Or was it follow the money so that all policies that were implemented by Mike Pence's COVID task force with Jared Kushner in the background making money hand over fist as they were determining who was going to get the ventilators at the state level with the governors? Remember Pence was a governor of Indiana? Wasn't he head of the Republican Governors Association at some point? Was he allocated? Which governors decided to do the lockdowns? Were there only Democrat governors? Or did Arizona's Ducey and Brian Kemp and Sununu in New Hampshire and DeWine in Ohio, etc., which are all Republicans, also comply with Mike Pence's follow the science Fauci as spelled out here? I could be wrong.
I don't think you are.
That's my opinion based on what I just laid out. That connecting the dots really helps explain why the decisions were made and why they're acting in the way they're acting. Didn't Mike Pence speak at the FTX symposium in New York that New York's Lines hosted? Yes, he did. Interesting, isn't it? Didn't Christopher Wray go to the World Economic Forum meeting this year? Interesting, isn't that? Connect the dots, and then you can start helping me deep state Mirage. Let's go.
Ivan,
Crush the commies, left and right.
thanks for joining.
So your website, Ivan.
Discussion for
RAIKLIN.com. Wonder Twin Powers activate.
now. Boom.
That's it.
Citizen Media.